Dark hair, dark people, eyes. An Irish family name. For generations, one popular legend traced that combination to one event. Spanish sailors washing ashore after the Armada shattered along Ireland's coast in 1588, then disappearing into local families. For families who carried the story, appearance seemed to preserve a hidden migration. Even early genetic similarities between Ireland and Iberia appeared to support the story. Then scientists sequenced ancient Irish remains. They found a woman whose DNA indicated dark hair and brown eyes almost 5,000 years before the Spanish ships arrived. But even she was not the answer, because after her lifetime, a later population shift reshaped Ireland, and living DNA alone could not clearly date it. But the first clue was not hidden in a genome. It was hidden in the name itself. Black Irish has never identified a single recognized population. Today, it can refer to black people who are Irish. In Irish American folklore, however, it described people of Irish ancestry whose dark coloring seemed unusual beside the stereotype of pale skin, freckles, and red hair. That was a perceived contrast, not a biological category. Yet once it had a name, families began searching for an origin. Dark hair became evidence. A southern-looking complexion suggested outsiders. Stories pointed to Mediterranean traders or people who had lived in Ireland before Celtic languages arrived. Then one story overtook the rest: Spain. Armada wrecks were scattered along Ireland's coast. And the legend now had everything it needed: foreign sailors, a precise date, and ancestors who could disappear into local families. The wrecks made the legend possible. Their aftermath made it unlikely. In 1588, Armada ships were driven onto Ireland's Atlantic coast. Many sailors drowned. Some survivors found shelter. Others were captured, killed, or fled Ireland. Surviving evidence does not support settlements large enough to create a recognizable population across the island. Still, Spain remained tempting. Irish ports traded with Iberia, while early genetic studies found shared patterns along Atlantic Europe linking Ireland to northern Iberia. Placed side by side, the clues looked decisive. But those studies were reading the past through living people. Genetic similarity can reveal shared ancestry without establishing its age, cause, or direction. In popular retellings, two separate stories therefore merged. Folklore pointed to Spanish sailors in 1588. Science pointed to much older genetic affinities along Atlantic Europe. Iberian-related became Araucanian Spanish, and ancient shared ancestry became evidence for the Armada. But DNA had not confirmed the legend. The legend had interpreted the DNA. To separate 1588 from prehistory, scientists needed dated ancient genomes. 4 Irish individuals provided exactly that, beginning with one woman whose burial moved the mystery thousands of years further into the past. That woman was buried at Ballynahattie, near Belfast. She lived between 3343 and 3020 BCE. Her DNA strongly predicted dark hair, most likely black, and brown eyes. If dark coloring required Spanish sailors as an explanation, her predicted appearance should have been impossible. She lived almost 5,000 years before the Armada. Her genome contained a southern connection, but not the one the legend required. Most of her ancestry came from early farmers whose roots lay in Anatolia and the Near East. Related farmers moved west through Europe, mixing with hunter-gatherers. Her genome shared affinities with Neolithic people from Spain and other southern regions, but that did not make her Spanish. This ancestry predated both nations and was distributed across multiple European populations. Her genome settled one question. Black hair and brown eyes needed no Armada explanation. Yet one woman cannot define an entire population. And Ireland's genetic history did not stop with her farmers. Roughly a millennium later, 3 Bronze Age men were buried on Rathlin Island. Their genomes retained part of that earlier ancestry, but were closer to modern Irish people. And carried ancestry Ballinahati lacked. The ancestry Ballinahati lacked did not point to Spain. Its deepest source lay much farther east, among populations connected to the Pontic-Caspian steppe. During the 3rd millennium BCE, descendants of those populations moved west across Europe, eventually carrying that ancestry to Ireland. The 3 Rathlin Island men lived between 2026 and 1534 BCE. Their genomes combined substantial steppe-related ancestry with ancestry from Europe's earlier farmers. The change was not instant, and earlier communities did not simply vanish. But ancient DNA revealed a population shift large enough to reshape Ireland's gene pool. Living DNA could not clearly date that shift. Modern genomes compress millennia, making old Atlantic connections look continuous. Ancient DNA separated the layers. Ballinahati preserved the earlier farmer layer. The Rathlin men revealed what came next. The Rathlin genomes were closer to modern Irish, Scottish, and Welsh people. By about 4,000 years ago, central features of today's Irish genetic profile were already taking shape. Later migrations added layers. But any Spanish sailors who remained after 1588 entered a population whose main foundations had formed thousands of years earlier. Still, if the legend described a large, distinct population, modern DNA might preserve it geographically. When researchers mapped the island region by region, they found divisions, but not the ones the legend predicted. The strongest divisions researchers detected followed geography. Complexion was not part of the dataset. Researchers identified multiple regional genetic clusters. Some reflected provincial borders, historic kingdoms, and communities that had remained relatively isolated for generations. Other patterns revealed connections across the Irish Sea. Researchers also detected affinities with Britain, France, and Scandinavia, evidence of migration and contact, but not historical name tags. A Scandinavian-like component does not automatically identify a Viking ancestor, and a French-like affinity may reflect ancestry shared before either modern nation existed. No published regional ancestry pattern corresponded to the legendary Black Irish as a distinct population founded by Spanish sailors. The studies did not categorize people by complexion or test every family tradition, so they cannot exclude individual Spanish ancestors. But individual family lines are not evidence for an entire population. Modern DNA preserved Ireland's regional history. It did not divide the island into ordinary Irish and Black Irish. The legend's central assumption remained that appearance could reveal ancestry. Genetics showed why that assumption fails. A face is an outcome of inheritance, not a record of one migration. Hair, eye, and skin color are influenced by numerous genetic variants reshuffled with every generation. That is why siblings with almost identical ancestry can inherit different features, and why the same dark appearance can result from genetic combinations found across Europe. There is no single Black Irish gene, and no genetic package connecting dark hair and brown eyes specifically to Spain. A dark-haired Irish person could have a Spanish ancestor, but their appearance cannot prove that ancestor existed, determine when they lived, or distinguish them from countless other ancestors in the same family tree. That is the difference between possibility and evidence. Ancient DNA can date population changes because the remains themselves come from specific periods. Hair color cannot supply that timestamp. the Black Irish legend turned a visible contrast into a historical clue. Ancient DNA showed that at least one woman in Neolithic Ireland likely had dark hair and brown eyes, but it did not confirm the Armada explanation attached to those traits. The older scientific picture had detected a genuine affinity. But the wrong story began with the one thing those studies could not provide. No single discovery destroyed the legend. The final error was not geography, it was chronology. Early studies detected genuine genetic affinities along Atlantic Europe, but DNA from living people could not clearly date them. Folklore supplied the answer: 1588. Ancient genomes showed that 1588 arrived thousands of years too late. A woman in Neolithic Ireland likely had dark hair and brown eyes. The island's population then changed substantially during the Bronze Age, while later migrations added further layers. The Armada arrived near the end of that history, not at its beginning. Individual Spanish sailors may have left descendants, but DNA provides no evidence that they created a separate population, and they are unnecessary as an explanation for dark-featured Irish families. In the folklore sense, Black Irish is therefore a cultural and family label, not a single biological lineage. The ships were real. The resemblance was real. The connection between them was the myth. If your family has a Black Irish story, share its version and region in the comments. Subscribe for more ancestry legends tested against ancient DNA.